The galaxy has a way of humbling the proud. For the Valari Republic, that humility came not from words, but from the sound of their own world cracking. The Valari were an elegant species. They lived in cities of glass and light, orbiting stars that never flickered. They believed that war was a relic of the past, a primitive impulse that civilized beings had outgrown. They had spent 10,000 years building a utopia, only to realize that a utopia is just a fragile cage when a predator arrives. The predator was the swarm, a nameless, organic tide that didn't want territory or gold. It wanted biomass. It wanted to consume. When the swarm hit the Valari border worlds, the Republic didn't fight back with fire. They sent diplomats. They sent messages of peace. The swarm responded by turning those diplomats into fuel for their birthing pods. By the time the Valari realized that you cannot reason with hunger, it was too late. Their fleets were shattered. Their glass cities were ground to dust. In their final hour, the High Council of Valar did something they had sworn never to do. They sent a distress signal to the Forbidden Sector. They sent a cry for help to the one planet every other species avoided, a planet called Earth. The Valar didn't expect a savior. They expected a scavenger. They begged for mercy from the universe, but what they got was something far more terrifying. They got us. High Priest Kale of the Valar stood on the balcony of the last standing spire in the capital. Below him, the swarm was crawling over the walls like a black carpet of teeth and claws. The air smelled of ozone and death. "Where is the Council's miracle?" Kale whispered, clutching his ceremonial staff. "They said help was coming." His navigator, eyes wide with terror, pointed to the sky. "Something just exited warp, High Priest. But it's not a ship. It's a mountain of rusted iron." Out of the clouds burst the USS Dreadnought. It wasn't beautiful like the Valari cruisers. It was a brutal, rectangular slab of matte gray steel, covered in scars from 100 battles. It didn't glide through the air. It hammered its way through the atmosphere, creating a sonic boom that shattered what was left of the glass windows. From the belly of the ship, thousands of small black dots began to fall. "They aren't using parachutes," the navigator screamed. They weren't. They were orbital drop pods, human coffins. They slammed into the ground between the Valari Palace and the swarm with the force of meteors. The impact sent shockwaves that leveled the nearby swarm creatures. The doors of the pods didn't slide open. They exploded outward. And then, out of the smoke, stepped the Deathworlders. The Valari had seen warriors before, but they had never seen ferocity. Human soldiers, draped in heavy ceramic plate armor, didn't wait for a formation. They didn't wait for a command. The moment their boots touched the alien soil, they began to move. It was a controlled madness. A massive swarm beast, the size of a tank, lunged at a lone human sergeant named Elias. Kale watched from above, certain the human was about to be torn apart. In the Valari world, if a beast is bigger than you, you run. Elias didn't run. He didn't even flinch. He ducked under the beast's sweeping claw, and with a roar that sounded more animal than human, he jammed a thermal-charged blade into the creature's soft underbelly. As the beast collapsed, Elias didn't stop. He used the falling carcass as a stepping stone to launch himself at the next enemy. "They are fighting. By hand?" Kale gasped. The humans were using everything: rifles that spat kinetic lead, bullets that tore through organic armor like paper, grenades that burned with the heat of a small sun. And when the ammo ran dry, they used their fists, their boots, and the very environment around them. The swarm, which had terrified the galaxy into submission, found itself facing a predator that was meaner, faster, and far more stubborn. Humans were born on a planet that tried to kill them every day. Gravity, predators, viruses, and storms had forged a species that didn't know how to give up. To the humans, the swarm wasn't a nightmare. It was just another Tuesday. Part 4. The Shift in Perspective.
By the third hour of the battle, the tide had turned. The area around the palace was a graveyard of swarm bodies. The humans had carved a path of blood through the invincible army. But then the Swarm Queen emerged, a towering monstrosity of bone and venom. Her presence caused the Valari to collapse in psychic agony. Her shriek was a weapon in itself.
The human line wavered. For a second, it looked like even the Deathworlders had found their limit. Kale watched as the humans began to retreat back toward their drop pods. "No," he whispered, "even they are afraid." But they weren't retreating, they were clearing a path. From the USS Dreadnought, a single massive metallic object was lowered by heavy chains. It was a Breaker Mech, a 20-foot-tall exoskeleton piloted by a human who had lost both his legs in a previous war and chose to become a machine to keep fighting. The pilot's voice boomed over the battlefield through external speakers. It wasn't a prayer or a diplomatic plea, it was a joke. "Is that the best you've got? My grandmother's cat scratches harder than you bugs." The mech charged. It didn't fire lasers, it swung a massive industrial hammer. Each strike sounded like a thunderclap. The Swarm Queen lunged, her venomous stingers striking the mech's hull, but the pilot just laughed. "That all you got, sweetheart?" He grabbed the Queen's primary stinger with one mechanical hand and snapped it like a dry twig. Then he pinned her to the ground and began to pummel her with the hammer. The Valari stood in silence. They had begged for mercy from the swarm, thinking it was the most powerful force in existence. Now they were watching a human beat that force into the dirt with a piece of metal and a smile. They realized then that they hadn't called for help. They had invited a monster to kill another monster. When the sun set over the ruins of the capital, the swarm was gone. Not just defeated, but hunted down. The humans had chased the survivors into the caves and the deep forests, making sure not a single one remained. Kale walked down the palace steps to meet the human commander. He expected to see a cold, mechanical killer. Instead, he found Sergeant Elias sitting on a pile of rubble, his helmet off, sharing a small plastic packet of chocolate with a terrified Valari child. Elias was covered in black ichor and dust, his knuckles were bruised, and he looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "Why?" Kale asked, his voice trembling. "Why did you come? We are nothing to you. We have no resources you need. We are weak." Elias looked up, his eyes weary but kind. He took a bite of his ration bar and shrugged. "Back on Earth we have a saying. Pick on someone your own size. You guys asked for help. On a death world, when someone asks for help, you give it, because tomorrow it might be you." Kale looked at the humans. They were loud, they were messy, and they were terrifyingly violent. But as he watched them patch up the Valari wounded and share their limited water, he understood. Their ferocity wasn't born of hatred. It was born of a fierce, unbreakable love for life. They fought like demons so that others could live like angels. Part 6. The Moral Reflection. Narrator. Slow, powerful, and final. The Valari Republic rebuilt. Their glass cities became stronger, reinforced with human steel. They never forgot the day the sky turned gray and the Deathworlders arrived. The galaxy changed that day too. Other empires, who once looked at Earth with mockery or disdain, now looked at it with a quiet, respectful fear. They realized that humanity was the ultimate insurance policy. We are the ones you call when there is no hope left. We are the ones who walk into the fire while everyone else is running out. We are the Deathworlders. And as the Valari looked at their new human allies, they realized that the mercy they had begged for wasn't a gift from the gods. It was a gift from a species that had survived hell
and decided to make it a little bit better for everyone else. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars. Together, we will continue to explore the heights of the human spirit. Until next time, keep looking up.